see a watermark.
Me either. Let's hope it doesn't pop up.
Recommend.
Then I'll have to write an email to someone and complain.
Mm-hmm. And no one wants that.
No, we really don't.
Especially us.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Tis a thing of beauty.
Tis a thing of beauty, isn't it?
Tis.
There should be a light to let you know it's on.
Right?
But there isn't.
Not beautiful.
No, there is. I see it.
I was gonna say, like, literally every device out there has some fucking shit like that, bro.
Okay. What does that sound?
Probably this.
It's working.
It's working.
Fuck yeah. Okay.
Deidre.
Honey.
Now we can use our C2C to charge the hotspot, Deidre.
Yeah. And it will charge it in 2 seconds.
Uh-huh.
When you start bringing that shit in the car.
Right? As it is, we need to plug it into a box.
Yeah.
Because it's about to die soon.
Oh my god, these fucking plugs are tight as hell.
Ain't no loose pussy plug.
Ain't no loose pussy plug. They're like, it's supposed to go in your car, so it's gotta be
Gotta be tight.
tight. See what I mean?
It's great though.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, now I can put another pocket juice in. Now,
That looks problematic.
why?
Can you plug things into both of those boxes at the same time?
Yeah, they're facing opposite directions.
Okay. And the cord doesn't block it on the one side?
Not too much.
Okay.
It's not perfectly ideal, but
If
it's
it
fine.
works, that's good enough.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, need a small micro. And it's not charging.
Yes, it is. What are you talking about?
Now it is. I just adjusted it. I was doing that for a reason. I need another small micro. Where are they? I only see one over here. Where is it? Sorry.
Don't you have any other boxes?
No. Those are the only
Those are the
two.
only two we have?
Right. No, in the car right now, yes.
That's what I meant, yeah. All right. It is what it is.
I don't usually bring a lot of boxes out because we didn't usually be nowhere.
I was shocked that you had two on you.
Cool. Alright, I'm gonna watch The Godfather, listen to The Godfather while I eat.
Watch it.
Yeah.
And opened the paper. The headline said, Vito Corleone shot. Alleged racket chief critically wounded. Hands around Wagner's head like a vice. The other man smashed his huge fist into the fixed target. There were more people coming out of the bar, but none tried to interfere. Hands around Wagner's head like a vice. The other man smashed his huge fist into the fixed target. There were more people coming out of the bar, but none tried to interfere. Paulie Gatto yelled, "Come on, enough!" The two big men jumped into the car, and Paulie gunned it away. Somebody would describe the car and read the license plates, but it didn't matter. It was a stolen California plate, and there were 100,000 black Chevy sedans in New York City. Chapter 2. Tom Hagen went to his law office in the city on Thursday morning. He planned to catch up on his paperwork so as to have everything cleared away for the meeting with Virgil Sollozzo on Friday. A meeting of such importance that he had asked the Don for a full evening of talk to prepare for the proposition they knew Sollozzo would offer the family business. Hagen wanted to have all little details cleared away so that he could go to that preparatory meeting with an unencumbered mind. The Don had not seemed surprised when Hagen returned from California late Tuesday evening and told him the results of the negotiations with Waltz. He had made Hagen go over every detail and agreed grimaced with distaste when Hagen told about the beautiful little girl and her mother. He had murmured infamita, his strongest disapproval. He had asked Hagen one final question.
Does this man have real balls?
Hagen considered exactly what the Don meant by this question. Over the years, he had learned that the Don's values were so different from those of most people that his words also could have a different meaning. Did Waltz have character? Did he have a strong will? He most certainly did, but that was not what the Don was asking. Did the movie producer have the courage not to be bluffed? Did he puffed on his cigar?
Santino, what do you think?
Hagen knew what Sonny would say. Sonny was chafing at being under the Don's thumb. He wanted a big operation of his own. Something like this would be perfect. Sonny took a long...
No. The bastard who pulled this must be crazy. I want you to get out of here.
Really think the Don would be ignorant of his conquest? Hagen wondered. And did he really not know what... Passive.
I need $2 million cash. Equally important, I need a man who has powerful friends.
Money and power could make it. It was crazy to risk all this because of a whim. Maybe he could get to Corleone. What was the legal penalty for killing a racehorse? He laughed wildly, and his very mild sedation had helped him calm down again and to think sensibly. $100,000, and again and to think sensibly. What really shocked him was the casualness with which this man Corleone had ordered the destruction of a world-famous horse worth $600,000. $600,000. And that was just for openers. Walt shuddered. He thought of this life he had built up. He was rich. He could have the most beautiful women in the world by crooking his finger and promising a contract. He was received by kings and queens. He lived a life as perfect as money and power could make it. It was crazy to risk all this because of a whim. Maybe he could get to Corleone. What was the legal penalty for killing a racehorse? He laughed wildly, and his doctor and servants watched him with nervous anxiety. Another thought occurred to him. He would be the laughingstock of California merely because someone had contemptuously defied his power in such arrogant fashion. That decided him. That and the thought that maybe they wouldn't kill him. That they had something much more clever and painful in reserve. Waltz gave the necessary orders. His personal confidential staff swung into action. The servants and the doctor were sworn to secrecy on pain of incurring the studio and Waltz's undying enmity. Word was given to the press that the racehorse Khartoum had died of an illness contracted during his shipment from England. Orders were given to bury the remains in a secret place on the estate. 6 hours later, Johnny Fontaine received a phone call from the executive producer of the film telling him to report for work the following Monday. That evening, Hagen went to the Don's house to prepare him for the important meeting the next day with Virgil Sollozzo. The Don had summoned his eldest son to attend, and Sonny Corleone, his heavy, cupid-shaped face drawn with fatigue, was sipping at a glass of water. He must still be humping that maid of honor, Hagen thought, another worry. Don Corleone settled into an armchair, puffing his Di Nobili cigar. Hagen kept a box of them in his room. He had tried to get the Don to switch to Havanas, but the Don claimed they hurt his throat. The Don asked,
Do we know everything necessary for us to know?
Hagen opened the folder that held his notes. The notes were in no way incriminating, merely cryptic reminders to make sure he touched on every important detail.
Sollozzo is coming to us for help. He will ask the family to put up at least $1 million and to promise some sort of immunity from the law. For that, we get a piece of the action. Nobody knows how much. Sollozzo is vouched for by the Tattaglia family, and they may have a piece of the action. The action is narcotics. Sollozzo has the contacts in Turkey, where they grow the poppy. From there, he ships to Sicily. No trouble. In Sicily, he has the plant to process into heroin. He has safety valve operations to bring it down to morphine and bring it up to heroin if necessary. But it would seem that the processing plant in Sicily is protected in every way. The only hitch is bringing it into this country and then distribution. Also initial capital. $1 million cash doesn't grow on trees.
Hagen saw Don Corleone grimace. The old man hated unnecessary flourishes in business matters. He went on hastily.
They call Sollozzo the Turk. 2 reasons. He spent a lot of time in Turkey and is supposed to have a Turkish wife and kids. Second, he's supposed to be very quick with the knife, or was when he was young. Only in matters of business, though, and with some sort of reasonable complaint. A very competent man, and his own boss. He has a record. He's done 2 terms in prison, one in Italy, one in the United States. And he's known to the authorities as a narcotics man. This could be a plus for us. It means that he'll never get immunity to testify, since he's considered the top. And of course, because of his record. Also, he has an American wife and 3 children, and he's a good family man. He'll stand still for any rap as long as he knows that they will be well taken care of for living money.
The Don puffed on his cigar.
Santino, what do you think?
Hagen knew what Sonny would say. Sonny was chafing at being under the Don's thumb. He wanted a big operation of his own. Something like this would be perfect. Sonny took a long slug of scotch.
There's a lot of money in that white powder, but it could be dangerous. Some people could wind up in jail for 20 years. I'd say that if we kept out of the operations end, just stuck to protection and financing, it might be a good idea.
Hagen looked at Sonny approvingly. He had played his cards well. He had stuck to the obvious, much the best course for him. The Don puffed on his cigar.
And you, Tom, what do you think?
Hagen composed himself to be absolutely honest. He had already come to the conclusion that the Don would refuse Sollozzo's proposition. But, what was worse, Hagen was convinced that for one of the few times in his experience, the Don had not thought things through. He was not looking far enough ahead.
Go ahead, Tom. Not even the Sicilian consigliere always agrees with the boss.
They all laughed.
I think you should say yes. You know all the obvious reasons, but the most important one is this. There is more money potential in narcotics than in any other business. If we don't get into it, somebody else will. Maybe the Tattaglia family. With the revenue they earn, they can amass more and more police and political power. Their family will become stronger than ours. Eventually, they will come after us to take away what we have. It's just like countries. If they arm, we have to arm. If they become stronger economically, they become a threat to us. Now we have the gambling and we have the unions, and right now they are the best things to have. But I think narcotics is the coming thing. I think we have to have a piece of that action or we risk everything we have. Not now, but maybe 10 years from now.
The Don seemed enormously impressed. He puffed on his cigar and murmured.
That's the most important thing, of course.
He sighed and got to his feet.
What time do I have to meet this infidel tomorrow?
Hagen said hopefully.
He'll be here at 10 in the morning.
Maybe the Don would go for it.
How are you both here with me?
The Don rose, stretching, and took his son by the arm.
Santino gets some sleep tonight. You look like that devil himself. Take care of yourself. You won't be young forever.
Sonny, encouraged by this sign of fatherly concern, asked the question Hagen did not dare to ask.
Pop, what's your answer going to be?
Don Corleone smiled.
How do I know? Until I hear the percentages and other details. Besides, I have to have time to think over the advice given here tonight. After all, I'm not a man who does things rashly.
As he went out the door, he said casually to Hagen,
Do you have in your notes that the Turk made his living from prostitution before the war? As the Tattaglia family does now? Write that down before you forget.
There was just a touch of derision in the Don's voice, and Hagen flushed. He had deliberately not mentioned it, legitimately, so since it really had no bearing, but he had feared it might prejudice the Don's decision. He was notoriously straight-laced in matters of sex. Virgil the Turk Sollozzo was a powerfully built, medium-sized man of dark complexion who could have been taken for a true Turk. He had a scimitar of a nose and cruel black eyes. He also had an impressive dignity. Sonny Corleone met him at the door and brought him into the office where Hagen and the Don waited. Hagen thought he had never seen a more dangerous-looking man, except for Luca Brasi. There were polite handshakings all around. If the Don ever asks me if this man has balls, I would have to answer yes, Hagen thought. He had never seen such force in one man, not even the Don. In fact, the Don appeared at his worst. He was being a little too simple, a little too peasant-like in his greeting. Sollozzo came to the point immediately. The business was narcotics. Everything was set up. Certain poppy fields in Turkey had pledged him certain amounts every year. He had a protected plant in France to convert into morphine. He had an absolutely secure plant in Sicily to process into heroin. Smuggling into both countries was as positively safe as such matters could be. Entry into the United States would entail about 5% losses, since the FBI itself was incorruptible, as they both knew. But the profits would be enormous. The risk, non-existent. The Don asked politely.
Then why do you come to me? How have I deserved your generosity?
Sollozzo's dark face remained impassive.
I need $2 million cash. Equally important, I need a man who has powerful friends in the important places. Some of my couriers will be caught over the years. That is inevitable. They will all have clean records, that I promise. So it will be logical for judges to give light sentences.
Want this plugged in?
I need a friend who can guarantee that when my
We
people get
only
in
have
trouble,
one
they won't spend more than a year or two in
of
jail.
these.
Then they won't
Right
talk. But if they get 10 and 20 years, who knows? In this world, there are many weak individuals. They may talk. They may jeopardize more important people. Legal protection is a must. I hear, Don Corleone, that you have as many judges in your pocket as a bootblack has pieces of silver.
Don Corleone didn't bother to acknowledge the compliment.
What percentage for my family?
Sollozzo's eyes gleamed.
Get another one, I think. Set to get through this Beyond a Great Joy video.
I'm okay.
Huh?
I'd be okay with finishing that scene in The Godfather.
Okay.
Looking man, except for Luca Brasi. There were polite handshakings all around, and Sicily to process into heroin. Smuggling into both countries was...
Some of my couriers will be caught over the years. That is inevitable. They will all have clean records, that I promise. So it will be logical for judges to give light sentences. I need a friend who can guarantee that when my people get in trouble, they won't spend more than a year or two in jail. Then they won't talk. But if they get 10 and 20 years, who knows? In this world, there are many weak individuals. They may talk. They may jeopardize more important people. Legal protection is a must. I hear, Don Corleone, that you have as many judges in your pocket as a bootblack has pieces of silver.
Don Corleone didn't bother to acknowledge the compliment.
What percentage for my family?
Sollozzo's eyes gleamed.
50%.
He paused, and then said in a voice,
They will
Like
receive something
15
from my
minutes
share.
ago.
I need some help in the operations.
So, I receive 50% merely for
But it
finance
already dropped
and
down.
legal protection.
Yeah.
I have no worries about operations, is that what you tell me?
Sollozzo nodded.
If you think $2 million in cash is merely finance, I congratulate you, Don Corleone.
I consent to see you out of my respect for the Tataris, and because I've heard you are a serious man to be treated also with respect. I must say no to you, but I must give you my reasons. I am no word.
Sollozzo seemed to be nervous.
As pieces of silver.
Don Cor-
Won't spend more than a year or two in jail. Then they won't talk. But if they get 10 and 20 years, who knows? In this world, there are many weak individuals. They may talk. They may jeopardize more important people. Legal protection is a must. I hear, Don Corleone, that you have as many judges in your pocket as a bootblack has pieces of silver.
Don Corleone didn't bother to acknowledge the compliment.
What percentage for my family?
Sollozzo's eyes gleamed.
50%.
He paused, and then said in a voice that was almost a caress,
In the first year, your share would be $3 or $4 million. Then it would go up.
And what is the percentage of the Tataria family?
For the first time, Sollozzo seemed to be nervous.
They will receive something from my share. I need some help in the operations.
So, I receive 50% merely for finance and legal protection. I have no worries about operations, is that what you tell me?
Sollozzo nodded.
If you think $2 million in cash is merely finance, I congratulate you, Don Corleone.
I consent to see you out of my respect for the Tataris, and because I've heard you are a serious man to be treated also with respect. I must say no to you, but I must give you my reasons. The profits in your business are huge, but so are the risks. Your operation, if I were part of it, could damage my other interests. It's true I have many friends in politics, but they would not be so friendly if my business were narcotics instead of gambling. They think gambling is something like liquor, a harmless vice. And they think narcotics a dirty business. No, don't protest. I'm telling you their thoughts, not mine. How a man makes his living is not my concern. And what I am telling you is that this business of yours is too risky. All the members of my family have lived well the last 10 years. Without danger, without harm. I can't endanger them or their livelihoods out of greed.
The only sign of Sollozzo's disappointment was a quick flickering of his eyes around the room, as if he hoped Hagen or Sonny would speak in his support. Then he said,
Are you worried about security for your $2 million?
The Don smiled coldly.
No.
Sollozzo tried again.
The Tattaglia family will guarantee your investment also.
It was then that Sonny Corleone made an unforgivable error in judgment and procedure. He said eagerly,
The Tattaglia family guarantees the return of our investment without any percentage from us?
Hagen was horrified at this break. He saw the Don turn cold, malevolent eyes on his eldest son, who froze in uncomprehending dismay. Sollozzo's eyes flickered again, but this time with satisfaction. He had discovered a chink in the Don's fortress. When the Don spoke, his voice held a dismissal.
Young people are greedy. And today they have no manners. They interrupt their elders. They meddle. But I have a sentimental weakness for my children, and I have spoiled them, as you see. Senor Sollozzo, my no is final. Let me say that I myself wish you good fortune in your business. It has no conflict with my own. I'm sorry that I had to disappoint you.
Sollozzo bowed, shook the Don's hand, and let Hagen take him to his car outside. There was no expression on his face when he said goodbye to Hagen. Back in the room, Don Corleone asked Hagen,
What did you think of that man?
He's a Sicilian.
The Don nodded his head thoughtfully. Then he turned to his son.
Santino, never let anyone outside the family know what you were thinking. Never let them know what you have under your fingernails. I think your brain is going soft from all that comedy you'll play with that young girl. Stop it and pay attention to business. Now get out of my sight.
Hagen saw the surprise on Sonny's face, then anger at his father's reproach. Did he really think the Don would be ignorant of his conquest? Hagen wondered. And did he really not know what a dangerous mistake he had made this morning? If that were true, Hagen would never wish to be the consigliere to the Don of Santino Corleone. Don Corleone waited until Sonny had left the room. Then he sank back into his leather armchair and motioned brusquely for a drink. Hagen poured him a glass of anisette. The Don looked up at him.
San Luca Plaza to see me.
3 months later, Hagen hurried through the paperwork in his city office, hoping to leave early enough for some Christmas shopping for his wife and children. He was interrupted by a phone call from a Johnny Fontaine, bubbling with high spirits. The picture had been shot, the rushes, whatever the hell they were, Hagen thought, were fabulous. He was sending the Don a present for Christmas that would knock his eyes out. He'd bring it himself, but there were some little things to be done in the movie. He would have to stay out on the coast. Hagen tried to conceal his impatience.
Alright, switch you.
This is the end of disc number 2.
Hang on.
Please insert disc number 3.
Yeah, wrong place.
You always do that. You always think it's on your phone and it's always on your tablet. You need to get used to that.
This is disc number 3.
This is disc number 3, Deidre.
How many disc number 3?
Disc.
Damn, how many discs was this audiobook on?
Probably like 10.
There was like 7. This is disc number 7.
Yeah.
Last night.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Holy shit.
I remember
How much data, how much not data can a
Uh-huh.
fucking disc hold?
Dude, I've listened to some long as fuck fantasy novels on audio cassette.
Uh-huh. I remember audio cassette. I've listened to a few audio cassettes myself.
Because you could check them out of the library.
Yeah, uh-huh.
It was really cool, actually.
Uh-huh.
Super cool. And, oh my god, the 90s.
So the 90s. Walking home from the library with your cassette that you just checked out. Your cassette audio book.
Listening to your cassette audio book.
So I miss those times, man.
I know. But I so don't miss those times.
I know, right?
We
We wouldn't be able to do our shit.
Nope, not at
Not
all.
at all.
Wouldn't even be able to think about doing our shit.
Anyway, are we ever going to move this car?
Yes, cheaply. I'm gonna hit the vape, but you need to hurry up and watch Brianna Greyjoy. What is dead mean never died, Deidre?
Okay.
You're supposed to say, what is dead may never die.
Okay, got it.
Traditional to say it back.
Conservatives who have no problem talking about conventional ideas of family with sex and reproduction, because like then old people would get married, right? So like you need to be able to creatively problem solve. That's why we don't let you.
That kind of white culture is invisibilized here. And part of what's doing that work in the context of the Buffalo shooter is this conversation about mental illness.
His entitlement, his way of life is threatened if we empower other people in a nation that he takes to be the proper domain of, white Americans. Like, he's witnessing an invasion and he's fighting back. That's an enemy combatant. That's not someone who's insane.
To me, it was an argument against actually doing things in service of constituents, advancing the kind of policies that people actually want politicians to advance, and instead sitting back and saying, well, they're never going to vote for these Republicans because the Republicans are too racist, so the Democratic Party just has to be the lesser of two evils, and that's how we get into a place where no one's actually offering positive policy prescriptions. So I am also mad at this thing. All right, tonight I am joined by Irami Osei Frimpong. He's been on the podcast before, is one of the people I most enjoy talking to because he doesn't mind getting in the weeds and saying and expressing thoughts, feelings, and opinions that are controversial. And we are in a controversial moment right now as the country is reeling in the act.
That's Mr. Osei Frimpong, sir, to you, Deidre.
Aftermath of 2 shootings last weekend. Both of which are identity motivated, only one of which is racially motivated, and we can unpack that a little bit later. Irami, you reached out to me.
Yes.
Saying that the last...
You need alcohol. Alcohol. I'm just sitting here like, this is torture. This is going to be torture. This is going to be torture. What can I do about this? Alcohol.
So much alcohol, all the alcohol.
Oh my god, can't get through these things without this. It's ridiculous.
You need weed.
I know! I was fine, just chilling, listening to The Godfather. I was in my happy place.
Uh-huh.
Wasn't even thinking about how sober I am.
You were like, I'm not even sober right
Yeah! Then as soon as we put on this shit, I'm like,
now. Suicidal.
Yes!
Meh, 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 meh. Captain, red alert.
Captain Red Alert. It's quite a difference.
Uh-huh. I'm a much more experienced hate watcher than you are. But even I lose my shit sometimes. Irami gets the fuck under my skin.
Irami?
Yeah.
Is that this black guy?
Yeah.
What?
In the it was an optical illusion. It was making that pole look like it was coming out of the trunk of that Honda Civic right there.
Where? What? Never mind. I don't care.
A giant parking lot pole.
Okay. Nope. Not enough. We really have all the thingies.
Uh-huh. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Audio, video, internet.
Yeah. Charging power.
Yeah, all we have to do it now is keep everything going.
Yeah.
And that'll be hard enough, so.
Mm-hmm.
conversation we had on this podcast in the wake of the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting was vindicated. Your take was vindicated by this. So I want to reintroduce you to the audience. He's a grad student at the University of Georgia, host of The Funky Academic, a political thinker, Irami Osei Frimpong. Welcome back to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me back. It's exciting to chop it up with you. I always enjoy my time here.
So remind us what your take was last time that you feel like has been vindicated by the situation that's emerged in Buffalo.
Well, I think America is a white nationalist nation, but it's very orderly, and that is the deal that the whites offer everybody else, including the blacks like us, an orderly white nationalism where if you actually just, they'll keep the order if you behave, and they'll even let you excel, and you can get a nice house in a suburb next to them if you want to. It'll be an orderly white nationalism, and all you have to do is accept the fact that it's not actually self-governance, but a quality of nationalism that's at stake. And that's acceptable to a lot of people, especially if they come from failed states, or they don't really want to govern, they just kind of want to earn money, right? So
yeah, and that's a super contradicting statement. As I'm thinking before, the only thing I can think of is he's thinking that there's a level of nationalism that's not allowed for black people, that is for white people. But you are allowed to self-govern. But then he says that that's fine for people who don't want to self-govern, they just want to earn.
Yeah, like you're literally picking two opposite lanes at the same time. So it makes me feel like you don't really actually believe anything.
Or at bare minimum, it makes me think you don't know what you're talking about.
Or bare minimum, how to say what you think.
Yeah, because those are two. Do we have self-governance or not? And if we have self-governance, why is this okay with people who don't want to self-govern?
And what even are you fucking complaining about specifically?
Yeah, like, okay, there's a level of nationalism that black people aren't allowed to have that white people are. I'm X to doubt, first of all. I think that there is a level of nationalism that all of us are not allowed to have, which is, put race nationalism, just putting that up top over everything.
Yeah.
White people aren't allowed to do that just as much as black people.
Yeah, we literally fought a war to stop white people from doing that.
Yeah. But obviously he doesn't believe that stopped.
Well, not every single white person that feels that way is constantly prevented from acting on their feelings. So in that sense, like, yeah, that phenomenon still exists, but it's certainly not.
It's not the way the country is run on.
No.
It's not white nationalism is not a foundation of this country.
It's very much a minority view among white people.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But black nationalism is a minority view among black people. I'm sure American Indian nationalism is a minority view among American Indians, and so on and so forth.
Smart people of any race can figure out that race nationalism is a fucking stupid idea, especially if they ever learned about, World War II or anything like that. Or, slavery or anything like that.
Anyway, let me try to get through this video.
We live, and I'm in the American South right now, and I just consider this an internal colony, functionally. You could say that, like, white people, black people have been here too, and they're a big part of the population, but yeah, we don't own anything. Like, look at commercial real estate. We don't own anything, and if you don't own it...
8.4% owned by black people.
Right.
Just saying.
Anything in a capitalist society, that means you're not really in the game. You're just a player on someone else's game. You're like a minor character in chess. We might be like a knight or like a few pawns, but we're not taking pieces, right? So, and we're definitely not a side. So what I'm saying is that America offers its
Such a pessimistic view.
Yeah. Extreme pessimism.
What is your answer to this? Even if everything you say is true, with such a pessimistic view, what is your
I'm
answer?
fairly certain he doesn't have many good answers for anything, but hopefully.
Well, that's Greyjoy's job. Okay.
Yeah.
citizens a form of orderly white supremacy or white nationalism. And if the whites feel like that's going to be slipping away, you have to imagine that
It's funny because that's Greyjoy's job, but she's over here asking him if she can read the manifesto.
You read my mind.
Yeah.
And a million other things that just.
Oh my god.
It's not her job, Deidre. It's your job.
I know. I know it is my job, actually.
Yeah, but
I'm
it's
just
also,
saying.
pathetically, it's also her job.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
It's been her job so far.
But, to be fair, it's also his job, and he fucking sucks ass. So.
Yeah, seriously. Fuck. And I'm not gonna feel bad. Both these people are like 10 years older than me at least, so.
Right. Suck it up.
Suck it up. Be the adults. Be adults.
Right.
Not children complaining.
There you go.
Yes, life sucks. What are we gonna do about it? What are we gonna argue for forever about the degree to which life sucks?
Oh, well.
That's really not gonna get us anywhere.
All we have to do is force the other side to agree that life is objectively superior to death. And it doesn't matter how much life sucks.
No.
That's irrelevant.
And it's inevitable. So the answer to that isn't just die.
What? Inevitable isn't. I'm not sure.
Life sucking sometimes is inevitable.
Oh, sure. I don't think that's a word, but yeah.
Okay, inevitable. Inevitable.
There you go.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Inevitable.
Yeah. That's why we go to college. In our minds. Like Sherlock Holmes.
I'm just glad you picked it up. That's all. See, I think as long as someone knows what the right word is, I'll learn eventually.
That is genuinely how it works.
Don't you mean inevitable? Yes, actually, yes. That's exactly what I meant. Thank you.
Right.
See, he knows what's good.
There you go.
there's going to be backlash. And you can't be surprised when there's backlash about that, right?
I want to get into this idea of what it means to have an orderly white nationalism, because I know that there are folks who are going to, their ears are going to perk up at that, and they're not going to know quite what to make of that. But let's set the stage a little bit. I'm sure that most folks who are listening to this at this point, airing on Thursday, almost a week, better part of a week after the shooting happened, know that the gunman was a white 18-year-old who, according to his screed that he wrote, some people are referring to as a manifesto. Some people are advising not to do so. I don't know what to do with that at this point. But in his manifesto, specifically evoked replacement theory, which is something that is now hot on the tip of everybody's tongue because it seems to explain, because it is a theory that has kind of leapt from what kind of cloistered white supremacist websites and has been mainstreamed by some folks like Tucker Carlson. Now people say it's not an explicitly racist theory. Tucker Carlson would say that it's not racist at all, that he's simply pointing out the truth, the reality, which is that America's population is being replaced by others, meaning immigrants, and that people who are here already, legacy Americans is a term that he's used to describe them. Again, not an explicitly racialized term, but legacy Americans, the ones who are already here, are disadvantaged by these immigrant groups that think differently and, most importantly, vote differently than Americans here. And he points to Democrats who have, in fact, made statements about demographic changes inuring to their benefit, their political benefit, basically, I would argue, giving up on the idea of actually persuading voters or talking to voters, confident in the idea that more Latino voters will basically mean the Democrats don't have to try because there's a demographic inevitability there. Tucker Carlson has picked up on that lingo that's been coming out of the Democratic Party from some time now, from people like Steve Phillips, who wrote The Browning of America, and said, look, they're saying it. They're saying it out loud. This is what's happening. This is a threat to a conservative way of life, to the Republican Party. And of course, I'm going to be opposed to immigration that hurts my political interest. Now, in return, Democrats say that is racist, but what's not kind of ambiguous is that the shooter explicitly referenced right at the top of his manifesto this replacement theory, and he framed it in explicitly racial terms, saying, is it wrong to quote from it? Like, are we not supposed to read from it?
Look, I think you should quote from it. I think you should read it. Because I don't actually think it's particularly individual. I think it's actually a distillation of what's in the water. And, you know, this is where some people are at. And I don't think I think it's actually a clear recitation. You could just read from the El Paso Shooters Manifesto because it's very similar, except, you know, change black people with Latinos.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, this is literally at the top. You know, there's a picture of that symbol that has been worn by so many folks over in the Azov Battalion. And then it starts what you need to know. If there's one thing I want you to get from these writings, it's that white birth rates must change. Every day the white population becomes fewer in number. To maintain a population, the people must achieve a birth rate that reaches replacement fertility levels. I'm skipping ahead a little, but not in Europe, not in the rest of America, not in Australia or New Zealand. Only in Argentina is this happening. White people are failing to reproduce, failing to create families, failing to have children. But despite this sub-replacement fertility rate, the population in the West is increasing rapidly. How is this possible? Mass immigration and the higher fertility rates of the immigrants themselves are causing this increase in the population. We're experiencing an invasion on a level never before seen in history. Millions of people pouring across our borders, legally, invited by the state and corporate entities to replace white people who have failed to reproduce, failed to create the cheap labor, failed to create new consumers and a tax base that the corporations and states need to have to thrive.
Right.
He goes on to say, this is white genocide, all caps and bold.
So there's a lot there. I want to just pick apart. Let's just deal with one theme at a time.
Sure.
Invasion, right? So let's say you're in the Ukraine and Russia invades, right? They're going to change your way of life. You're going to have to go to a re-education camp. You're going to have to give up your language a little bit. And I say a little bit because Ukrainian and Russian are different, but like not that different. And so you're going to have to give up a sense of sovereignty. You're going to have to change where you pay your taxes. In a lot of ways, your culture and your sense of government has been invaded and transformed. That's what's at stake. That's why you don't immediately surrender and just give up the flags and say like, oh, I guess we're Russian now, right? So if you think that's the stakes in the Ukraine, the United States is willing to just give you guns to fight it out, right? So the question is, for me, is that much different than this guy Gendron, what he feels like is going to happen in the United States, right? So what happens when the white Christian nation falls, right? So let's say black people get reparations. There's this idea that black people can get reparations, white people aren't gonna have to give up anything, it'll be fine, except black people will have like commercial land and money and assets and all this stuff that we don't have right now. I actually think that's a naive understanding of how reparations is gonna work.
Dribble!
Not a good thinker. Not a strong thinker.
This is no logic line. I can't follow a logic line when he speaks.
Very bad. Very, very bad.
There's no line of logic that I can see. You're making me work so hard to follow your line of logic, because you go here, then you go here, then you go here, then you go here, then you like pause. So let's say, now I gotta remember the 5 last here. Bro!
Yeah, it's absolutely bad. communication.
And I know you're trying to show off. I know he's trying to, because he feels insecure, because he knows Brianna Greyjoy is smarter than him and all of that. So, and like, has a bigger platform. That's got to be playing in here.
Oh,
but
I'm pretty sure he doesn't think she's smarter than him, but he definitely recognizes that she has a bigger platform than him.
hell no.
Yeah. That's just the kind of guy I think he is.
Well, he knows that she's more liked than he is by the general public.
Yeah.
So that's also making him nervous. He's trying his best not to look like a crazy person while knowing that he is the crazy person. Okay?
I hope he realizes it at some level of his consciousness.
No, that he's perceived as that. You know, he thinks everyone's wrong for thinking he's crazy, even though they're not. But, you know, he at least he's smart enough to recognize that everyone thinks he's crazy. And he's in a place where he doesn't want to look that crazy because he wants to convince people.
But he also refuses to not say what he thinks.
Exactly. And he sucks at saying it.
Yeah. So he's trying to both say what he thinks and not say what he thinks at the same time.
Yeah. He's like trying to play the fence with his really extremely extreme views.
Yeah. with his white genocidal views.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's not much playing the fence with that, bro.
Yeah, bro. Except if he admits to believing in the kind of beliefs he actually believes in this moment, he's just gonna look like he's justifying the fucking Buffalo shooter.
Yeah. Which, you know, that's not okay with general society.
Or just at all.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be back.